Is it on? Are we rolling? I think we are. First of all, thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all the people who watch and listen and hopefully learn from the stuff that I have to say. There's probably a lot more that's still to come. So thank you for that. Secondly, my setups aren't always the best, but I have to make do with what I got. This lighting, that's the sun. But I'm sorry about it. I'm sorry about it. My eyes go around everywhere. It's just a thing that I have. I'm sorry about it. I struggle to focus on one thing, especially when there's things moving around. I don't know what it's called, if it even has a name. I just struggle with that. I remember I tried to study one time at the library. I chose the worst place to sit. I was sitting right close to that ramp where people go up to go to different levels. Well, people in wheelchairs, I guess. And I swear, I was there for like 30 minutes until I was like, this ain't working. Because I'm sitting there and every time someone pauses, I'm just like, just trying to see. And it's just, yeah, it's just crazy. That's why my eyes, I struggle to keep them in one place. I'm very fidgety. Anyway, maybe if I had a curtain around the windows, maybe that would help. I'm doing what I'm doing because I'd like for us to learn stuff. But I think most importantly for me is that I'd like to learn stuff. I'd like to teach, yes, but in teaching, we learn. And this is something that I figured out a couple of years ago. I mean, I didn't revolutionize it. It's been in existence for a long time. It's something that's well known. I just then figured it out that hey, actually, when you teach something, you actually learn yourself. And I've seen it happen. There's a lot of times when I'm just having a conversation, and someone asks me a question, and I start giving an answer where sometimes even my mind is blown. I'm like, where does that come from? That logic is quite interesting. I never thought of it that way until now that I'm saying it. It's as if someone else is saying it through me. I wonder if it's been evident that a lot of the things I say aren't structured. I just come out and start saying them. I just get an idea that I think I want to talk about, and I come to talk about it. It's not because I think I'm the authority on any particular subject, but it's because I think I know something, and I want to share that because I want to know more. But then without perspective, it's kind of difficult to know more. So I put it out there to hopefully get a response. I really hope that I'm able to build into a platform where I can have people who I can converse with, who can then respond and interrupt me, ask me questions, and we have that back and forth, until we sort of get to a point of better knowledge for all of us. Not necessarily to have to agree on stuff, but just to actually have the conversations and have the questions asked, have the traditions questioned, have the cultures broken down so that we can understand where we come from and where we're going and figure out how to go there. My point in all of this is the following. I think things are nicer when you tell stories. A couple of years ago, I was having a chat with a couple of ladies and we were having a walk, and I was saying to them, hey, you guys should have conversations with your boyfriends, with regards to, and this is not just for your boyfriends at that very moment, just like even in future, if you're with a person, you're with people, whatever your case may be, have conversations. Everything, just figure it out. Your life, education, philosophies, ideologies, intimacy, and especially with intimacy. And that's the one that we sort of focused on because I think the others might be somewhat easier to talk about, but intimacy is one difficult, very difficult one that I thought if I made an example about this, I think it sort of makes everything else maybe easier to talk about. And I told them, like, if you want to be building something long term with someone, it's very important that you guys establish an understanding and a fluidity. I think a common misconception is that guys guys should know how to do it or how to do it properly or how to get you to climax or all those different kind of myths that exist. And I think unfortunately as guys our egos are such that we also want to play that part. So maybe we try so hard, or maybe we try to do certain things that we've seen in maybe in pornographic videos, or we've heard our friends tell us about, or whatever idea you have that, okay, I think this is what will get her going, without actually realizing that everyone's different. We guys are different, females are different, their preferences are different, their level of dominance are different. Sometimes in relationships, you find that there's a guy who just doesn't want to be the dominant one. He just prefers that the female be the dominant one. And maybe the female wants to be the dominant one, but because you guys are not wanting to talk about it, y'all end up just having it reversed because you just want to fit into the social stigma, the social expectation of it. And you're fitting into a social expectation when it's just the two of you. This is something intimate that is local to just you two, but you're trying to fit into the social image of what this should be. And I believe that conversation is what can help it be better. It's very uncomfortable. And I spoke of this even then because I had come from that. I think I was fortunate enough to have friends who told me that, hey, talk about it, ask, try stuff, but I'll also, just ask if stuff worked, ask what would work, talk about it. And these were female friends that were telling me this. And I think for them, it was sort of something that they've noticed as well, that, guys just feel like they think they know everything when they don't, especially since, again, people are different. And I felt it was very important that I tell these ladies that I was chatting to that, hey guys, y'all should actually confront us. Y'all should actually bring it up. Maybe choose your timing. Maybe don't just start saying stuff during the act, but maybe before the act, like way before the act, maybe when you're just chilling somewhere, just talk about it, so that it doesn't really talk to his ego directly, or her ego, whatever the case is. But then this is expandable. I can't go on and on about this in particular, but this is expandable to be applicable in any situation, any scenario. If we're best friends and we want to spend more time together and want to go to the movies, want to go on a trip, want to go on whatever, it is better that we communicate and figure out how we're going to do things. Because in a lot of friendships, you find there's a dominant person who somehow ends up dictating everything. And maybe not deliberately, but maybe their energy is just that expressive, and it's just that aggressive is not really the word. It's dominant, and they say things not because they're trying to dictate everything, but it's just because that's how expressive they are, and the other person might not be. And then things end up eventually being done the way that this guy always likes, or this girl always likes, and not the way the other person likes. And this other person has to always be living under the shadow of this one. And I feel like conversation, as uncomfortable as it could be, could help get things to a certain point. And even if it's with your parents, think about how even sex education, it's very difficult to actually have that with your kids, but it's really important that at some point you have it. Because if you don't then set the precedent, who will? Do you trust that that person who's going to set that precedent is going to set it properly? If I'm going to make it now a bit political, I'd say that in South Africa, we've reached a point of an inflection point. An inflection point is a point at which things turn around. I think a lot of people are hurtful. A lot of people are tired. We've been living in a certain era for a long time, and now we are seeing the results of what we've been living, and we want to change that. We want to fight it. And I think that a lot of people are scared. A lot of people don't want to have the conversation. And of course, a lot of people you'll try to start the conversations with are not going to be interested in having that conversation. But then that one day, that one time that you'll find someone who's going to be willing to listen, who's going to be interested in actually having that conversation, you might want to cling to that. I'm realizing that a lot of people I know, a lot of people around me, just aren't the people who want to have these conversations. That means I have to go outside of my circles to get people who want to have these conversations. I think more importantly for me, not just have the conversation, but to actually take the steps. I have to now reconnect with people I have to connect with people I've never connected with, people I've known, but I never thought I'd ever connect with. But I'm now realizing that, look, there are certain values that I have, there are certain things that I find important, but the people that are important to me, the people around me, don't necessarily find those things important, and I can't force things to be important to them. But there are other people who already find these things important. If I can just connect to them, find ways to click with them, and have these conversations, as uncomfortable as they may be, we're never going to agree on everything. We might agree on a lot of stuff. And I think it is nice to be in conversations with people with whom you agree. And even if you don't agree, you're learning from that person. And I think I'm mixing things up now, but it's very important that we have conversations. It's very important that we talk about stuff, anything, and like nothing should be outside of the limits of conversation, because the world is just, there's so much information that exists now. We live in the information age, and there's so much that we're consuming and that we're getting from many different sources. Some reliable, some not. Some just don't even know what they're talking about. But some, I mean, like me, I don't really know what I'm talking about. But if you just take things for what you hear them to be at face value, without actually investigating them, without having conversations with other people, getting different perspective, you're sort of setting yourself up for, I don't want to say failure, because that's very objective. But I think that it is important that we have conversations. It might not be the first time I'm saying this in recent times, but maybe I'm saying it in a different way. I feel like I am. I was saying that in South Africa we find ourselves in a very difficult position. I find myself having conversations with people of different races. The conversations I used to have with people of different races 10 years ago is completely different from the conversations I have now with people of different races. Because back then I just didn't see race. Well, I saw it, but it wasn't a thing to me. But now, having grown up, having seen the systematic applications thereof, having seen the differences in livelihoods of people from different races, having understood different perspectives, I ask different questions now. I meet people who are not necessarily my peers, who probably have the same mindset as me, but people who are older than me. I've had conversations with people who are younger, but not of different races. But I think now I'm able to have conversations with people that are older and of different races. And I try to be cautious, but I do then ask the questions, and I try to go and ask the questions about race, how things are, how things have been, how do you think things should go forward? What is your perspective? And one thing I'm realizing is that there's a lot of people that I meet of different races who have the same, not the same plight, but the same, there's a word, the word is there. Happens all the time. Jeez. We're crying about the same things. Shirilo Shaina, Shafana. We're crying about the same things, and you then realize that some of these challenges we're fighting together. Yes, not all of them we're fighting together, but some of them we are. And if we're not going to have these conversations, we're going to, if we're not having these conversations, we're just going to continue with our preconceived notions of what other people are, what other people probably think, and how they probably live, without actually getting to understand how certain people live, and then getting to understand how we can then merge our efforts together so as to build a better future for the people we care about. And the people we care about are our descendants. If things continue the way they are, if people are just going to be ignorant and just not caring about what's happening and just trying to be in your own corner, trying to just live your own life and just make things work for yourself, it's not a sustainable thing. Because eventually you're going to be in that bubble of yourself, and then the whole country, people are just going to be enslaved, and you're going to be wondering what happened. And then probably you want to start having the conversation. And I think that it's important that we have the conversations now, as uncomfortable as they are. If I'm going to be sitting there having a conversation with an old Bure man, I'm going to have to ask the tough questions. I'm going to have to say the tough things. He's going to have to say the tough things. He's going to have to ask the tough questions. But we're going to have to open our minds. we're gonna have to open our minds, we're gonna have to open our mouths, and we're gonna have to think and actually speak the truth, and be realistic about where we are, about life, about the country, about politics, about money, and about where we think things are going, and about how bright or how dark Lord shedding, the future seems. I didn't mean to say that.